Hi, welcome back to Inside the Index. I'm Melanie Brown, the VP of Data Analytics and Insights at KeyData. Today, I've got a January 2026 U.S. market update for you. I'll look at what happened in the fourth quarter of 2025, markets that are doing well, and what the data says about the year ahead because I know we're all interested. Let's do the big five in one, or the top 5 KPIs you need to know in 1 minute or less. Let's start the clock. First is paid occupancy, which finished last quarter slightly ahead of last year. October led a lot of that growth. November and December, though, also up 2% year over year, with Thanksgiving doing particularly well. And so we did see demand grow faster than supply. Average daily rates continued climbing throughout the quarter, as they always do due to the holidays. So October, the average guest price was $248 a night, up to $332 in December. Each of those 3 months was up about 2 to 3% year over year, which means RevPAR, our third metric, had solid year over year gains driven by higher rates and modest occupancy growth. Booking windows continue to shorten slightly, especially into December, so travelers continue to book closer to arrival. And then finally, length of stay was down slightly versus last year, so shorter, more flexible trips continue to dominate. For a deeper regional breakdown and even more insight into these metrics, check out the Q1 2026 US KeyData Index, which I've linked in the caption below. So which market stood out in Q4 of 25? The big picture is that regional performance continues to diverge, and revenue growth is being driven more by rates than by occupancy. Our leaders were the Mid-Atlantic and New England states which both had strong RevPAR growth. They had solid ADR increases with steady demand, and so regional travel patterns and pricing power both work together here. The Southeast and Southwest had more mixed performance, so moderate rate growth helped to offset flatter occupancy. Those two markets continue to be really highly competitive where pricing discipline matters. Then high rate markets like Hawaii and the Western US, still a little bit more of a mixed bag. They're commanding premium average daily rates, but growth has slowed as travelers have become more selective. So Q4 overall reinforced a clear theme. Markets that protected rate outperformed, and heading into 2026, pricing strategy remains the biggest differentiator. Now let's look ahead into the crystal ball. Q1 on the book so far, we see paid occupancy pacing slightly behind last year. This is a trend we've experienced for a few quarters now, where demand is just appearing later, it's not gone, so don't slash those prices quite yet. ADRs pacing ahead across all 3 months. Again, similar to what we've seen with forward-looking rates higher than last year, but as those cheaper, shorter last-minute stays get booked, I'd expect rates to end maybe 1 to 2% ahead of last year. And then RevPAR, we see January slightly down, February roughly flat, March modestly up. Rate growth is offsetting softer occupancy, but only partially. Booking windows continue to shorten as we get deeper into the quarter, so especially February and March. And then length of stay is trending lower, again, especially later in the quarter. So shorter stays, shorter booking windows will probably stick around for 2026. And we expect to still see more fragmented demand. We all keep talking about that K-shaped economy. So revenue growth is achievable. A lot of properties and managers have more revenue on the books for Q1 so far compared to the prior year. But execution and strategic thinking does matter. I'd like to give you some insider tips here. Number 1 is lean into that last minute demand. As booking windows continue to shrink, account for those changing booking windows in your rate strategy. Don't drop prices as soon as demand appears lower than last year. So in other words, if pickup is a little lower or a little slower than it was the same stay dates last year, give it a second, look at your booking window. Maybe people are just waiting to book. A flexible cancellation policy may be a good thing to explore here too. People are, hesitant to lock in a cancellation on a really strict or they're hesitant to lock in a reservation on a super strict cancellation strategy if they're unable to cancel if plans change. And then adapt to these shorter stays too. Guests are taking quicker trips more often. Here, make sure you're taking a look at your minimum length of stay policy. Adjust those minimum nights if you need to make sure you show up in search results. If everybody else in your market is allowing 5 to 6 day stays, and you're just doing 7, for example, you may be missing out on some conversion and some visibility on the OTAs. So the bottom line is the market is stabilizing overall, but guests are not. They're still keeping us on our toes. So data-driven, flexible, proactive operators will win in early 2026. You need to make sure you fall into those buckets. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Drop your questions or ideas in the comments. I'd love to see them for the next iteration of this index. And then download the free Q1 US Key Data Index for a deeper dive. You can visit keydata-dashboard.com to learn more about us or to request a personalized demo. I'll see you next time.